Hi, my name is Isabella Naples. I'm in 7th grade and I'm from O.A. Thorpe Scholastic Academy. My experiment was on teeth staining. My testable question was, will dentures be more stained from coffee, soda, or grape juice? This is my abstract sheet and my safety sheet. My testable question was, will dentures be more stained from coffee, soda, or grape juice? My independent variable was the coffee, soda, and grape juice. My dependent variable was the staining process, and my control were the dentures. My hypothesis was that the coffee would stain the teeth the most because of its dark color. My purpose for this experiment was because most people tend to drink these beverages on the daily, but some people will back off the drinks because they don't want to stain their teeth. But if people knew which would stain the most, then they would know when to drink them and when to not. For example, if you have a job interview, you would probably not drink coffee because you don't want your teeth being yellow. But if you're just at home lounging around, you could drink it whenever you wanted, because when you're at home, it's not as big of a deal because it's just you and probably friends or something. My materials were fake teeth, 4 ounces of plain black coffee, 4 ounces of Coca-Cola, 4 ounces of grape juice, tall glass jars, mine were wide-mouthed, and tweezers. I used metal, but you could use plastic or metal. I would thank my mom and dad because my dad did the experiment with me and my mom found the teeth, and Mr. Mackey for being patient and going through the whole process. My procedure started with filling one of the jars with plain black coffee, filling another jar with 4 ounces of Coca-Cola, filling the last jar with 4 ounces of grape juice, dropping 5 to 6 teeth into the coffee jar, 5 to 6 teeth into the Coca-Cola jar, and 5 to 6 teeth into the grape juice jar. I waited 24 hours and then took the teeth out of the jars. I repeated steps 7 and 8 for 3 days. These were the pictures that I took. For my experimentation, I dropped the teeth into their jars and waited for 24 hours before taking them out and taking notes on what I observed, and then dropping the teeth back into the jars and waiting an additional 24 hours and doing the same process 3 times. My results ended up with the grape juice being the most stained, and the coffee barely doing nothing, and the Coca-Cola coming closer to the grape juice, but just quite not as noticeable as the grape juice stains were. This was my data table. I have it mapped out with Coca-Cola and then grape juice and coffee in their own sections, and every single box is the different day describing each of the drinks. This was my graph. The different colors represent the different drinks, and the scale from 1 to 10 is how stained or how noticeable the stains were. This was my background research. I found out that soda can have negative effects on teeth because of the unnatural colorings and acids and chemicals. And tooth decay happens because of sugar and acid, because sugar fuels bacteria that are already in our mouths, and acid is created from that process. Another thing I learned was majority of the time, darker beverages will stain your teeth the most. Another thing I learned was coffee doesn't really stain your teeth. It just breaks down a layer of your tooth and shows the layer underneath, which is usually a bit more stained than your top layer. And coffee is also very acidic, and since it's also a hot liquid, it can go into the depths of your teeth and end up staying there in places that you can't get it out of. And it can weaken your enamel because of how high in acidity it is. And my analysis and retesting. In my experiment, if I were to make an error, I probably did not do correct measurements. Since I did work with liquids, it was easier for me to mess up measurements than somebody who probably didn't use liquids. Since I used liquids, there's a big chance of me pouring too little or too much into one jar, but not seeing it. If I were to retest my hypothesis, I would probably use different drinks. Well, not different drinks, but I would use different coffee because I used black coffee with no creamer or sugar. But if I added sugar or cream, it could have changed how the teeth reacted to the coffee because the creamer could have either lightened the teeth or could have stained it even more, and the sugar could have broken down the teeth because sugar creates acid. And another thing I would change would be the amount of time I did, because I only did 3 days, but if I were to do maybe 5 days or a week, it could have changed the results, and maybe a different drink would have stained more. And my conclusion: at the end of my experiment, the grape juice ended up staining the most, with Coca-Cola as a close second, and coffee being in the last spot. I would say that the grape juice stained the most because since it has such a deep, very dark purple color, it could have stained it more because dark colors do stain teeth more because teeth are white and dark colors will try to overtake that. And not only being a very dark color, grape juice also is pretty thick. It's the thickest drink out of the whole bunch. If I were to redo the experiment, I would change the days and my coffee.